What happens when a man offers mercy in the deadliest corner of the Amazon, only to witness nature's rawest justice? A silent jaguar, a monstrous anaconda. What happened next flipped everything we thought we knew about who the real predator was. You ever look at the world and think, well, at least it can't get any weirder? Yeah, I used to believe that too. Right up until I saw a grown anaconda turn a full-grown jaguar into what looked like a twisted garden hose. And that wasn't even the most shocking part of the day. Name's Rafael Cardenas. I'm not some wildlife biologist with a name tag and a drone. I'm a carpenter. I build things. Things people forget they need until a roof's missing or a porch collapses. I live right on the edge of the Amazon jungle. Not the one from vacation commercials, the real one. The kind that breathes down your neck, stares at you from the dark, and doesn't give a hoot who you are. That morning, I did something stupid, kind, brave, depends who you ask. I took my son Mateo on one of my quiet errands, dropping fruit and water near a muddy creek where animals sometimes wander in too close to the villages. Call it a peace offering to the wild. Some folks drop breadcrumbs to ducks. I leave papayas for tapirs. Dad, Mateo said, dragging his boots through the wet leaves, you ever see a jaguar? Only once. We stared at each other. I blinked first. He laughed like I was kidding. I wasn't. Anyway, we reached the creek, and right there, as if the universe had heard us talking trash, was a jaguar. A young male breathing like he just ran a marathon with a bullet in his ribs. His fur was soaked, tail twitching, eyes locked on me like he was too tired to growl. It wasn't normal, it wasn't safe, and I sure as daylight shouldn't have walked toward him. But I did. Mateo, back up to the trail, now. He hesitated. Go. He went. Good kid. I crouched down and slowly offered a metal bowl of water. No sudden moves, no heroic nonsense. Just a man kneeling in the mud, offering mercy to a creature that could rip his throat out. The jaguar didn't move, not even a twitch. He looked more confused than anything. I swear in that second, I saw a flicker of trust? Maybe he'd seen worse things than me. And then it happened. Something heavy broke through the water behind the jaguar. Something long, muscular, too smooth to be a tree root, too fast to be anything good. A snap, like thick cable, and suddenly the jaguar was gone under a coil of wet, scaly muscle. An anaconda. Not a big one, a monster. She had to be at least 20 feet long, thick as my torso. Her name? I didn't know it then, but I'd come to know it very well. Yarua. Locals whisper it like a curse and spit afterward. She wrapped around that jaguar like he was a chew toy. His body flailed once, then again, and then slowed. His claws scraped mud, water splashed, birds took off. I stood there with a useless stick in my hand, feeling smaller than ever. And here's the kicker. I tried to stop her. Yeah, brilliant idea. I shouted. I banged that stick on the ground like some backyard caveman. She didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge me. Because in her world, mercy's a myth. You're prey or you're not. And that jaguar, he was lunch. Then came the part I still can't explain. The jaguar, tangled up like a pretzel in those coils, lifted a paw. Not at her, at me. It touched my shoulder, not to attack, but like a goodbye, or a warning, or maybe forgiveness. And just like that, everything I thought I understood about wild animals, about nature, about who's in charge and who needs saving, got turned inside out. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this unfolded. Let me tell you something right now. When a jaguar gives you a look like that, beaten, wrapped up like a jungle burrito, and still reaching out to you, it doesn't leave your head. Not that day, not ever. I stood there, soaked in sweat and river mud, while that giant snake finished her job like it was just another Tuesday. But something felt wrong. No, scratch that. Everything felt wrong. I came out here to do a good thing. Feed the animals. Show my son how you treat the world with decency. And what did I get in return? A front row seat to nature's version of a mugging. Now here's where it gets tricky. I backed away slowly, pulling Mateo down the trail. His eyes were wide and he wasn't talking, which for a 12-year-old is like spotting a unicorn. I didn't tell him what we'd just seen. No point. He saw it too. I just said, "We're heading home. Now." But something in me wouldn't shut up. That jaguar wasn't out there by accident. He didn't just trip over a log and fall into the wrong part of the woods. No, he was running from something. And trust me, when the top predator of the forest runs, you pay attention. Later that evening, I went to see Elias. You ever meet someone so old, they look like they were carved out of tree bark? That's Elias. He's lived in this jungle longer than it's been called a jungle, knows every trail, every rustle in the trees. I told him what I saw, and this old man, he didn't laugh. He didn't act surprised. He just stared at the floor and muttered, "She's still here." "Who?" I asked. "Yarua, the mother coil." Turns out Yarua wasn't just some big snake, she was a legend, the kind that gets passed down through mosquito bites and rainy nights. Locals say she doesn't hunt for food, she hunts for balance, whatever that means. Now normally I'd file that under folklore and firelight stories, but not this time, because the next day something else crawled out of the trees. A pack of howler monkeys, normally loud, chaotic, completely full of themselves, showed up dead silent near the village. Just sat there, watching, like sentries. Then came the birds, flocks of them, all circling, not flying away. I've lived near these woods most of my life, and when the jungle starts acting polite, you run. That afternoon, I walked the same path again, against all better judgment. Some call it curiosity. I call it unfinished business. I reached the same muddy bend, and sure enough, the water was still, the air thick, and something was moving below the surface. I didn't see Yarua, but I felt her. That presence, like being watched by something that doesn't blink. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw it. A print, not just any animal print, a boot, a human footprint, fresh, deep, and leading away from the creek. Now I know what you're thinking. So what? People walk in the jungle all the time, but this was different. No trails lead that way, no logging, no researchers, just raw, untouched wild. And that's when it hit me. Something wasn't right out here. Something was pushing animals out of their territory, driving them toward the villages, toward the roads, into danger. And whatever it was wearing boots. Back at home, Mateo asked me if we'd go out again tomorrow. I looked at him for a long second. Not until I figure out what we're really dealing with. Because let's face it, the jungle doesn't hand out mercy. And if something was breaking its rules, it wouldn't be long before everything started breaking with it. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for, it's right here. Stick around to see how the tables finally turn and who ends up caught in their own trap. I've seen storms tear through this jungle like a freight train. I've seen jaguars tear through a deer like it owed them money. But nothing, I mean nothing, prepared me for what I saw that morning. I was back at the creek, third time in 3 days, and every instinct in my body was yelling, "Go home, Raphael!" But you know what? You don't raise a son by running from trouble. You face it, even when you're knee-deep in mud and your gut feels like it's full of bricks. I brought a trail cam, one of those motion sensor kinds that hunters use. I figured if there was some balance-breaking force out there, as Elias had put it, I'd catch it on camera. Science meets folklore. What could go wrong, right? I set the cam, left some fruit again, a peace ritual, I guess, and just as I turned to go, I heard it. Not a hiss, not a growl. A low, deep thump, like something heavy had dropped behind me. And there she was, Yarua, coiled around the half-fallen trunk of a tree like she was royalty on a throne. Her body shimmered with wet moss and scars, old, earned, unapologetic. But her head? Still. Unblinking. Focused. Not on me. On something behind me. I turned slowly, and there they were. 3 men. Not locals. Boots, gear, rifles slung like they meant business. And their business? Cutting trees, setting traps, clearing land that didn't belong to them. One of them spotted me and froze. We stared at each other like 2 deer caught in the same headlights. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, stepping forward. "Neither are you," I shot back. He didn't like that. I could tell by the way his jaw twitched. The man to his left raised his rifle slightly, not pointed, but not casual either. Tension thick as the vines hanging overhead. "You don't understand what's out here," he said. Oh, I understood plenty. They weren't just trespassing. They were pushing animals off their land, cornering predators, throwing the whole food chain out of whack. And the jaguar? He wasn't fleeing nature. He was fleeing them. And that's when things got weird. Yorua moved, slowly. With that kind of terrifying grace only ancient things have. The men didn't see her yet, too focused on me. 1 step, 2. Her coils brushing the leaves, silent as death. I didn't move. I barely breathed. And then, snap. Not a sound from her. The rifleman yelped. Something had wrapped around his ankle. One of her coils. She didn't go for the kill. Not yet. She just dragged him backward like a toddler pulling a stuffed toy right into the underbrush. The others panicked. One fired into the trees. Useless. Another ran. Straight into a web of low vines. I took cover behind a tree, heart pounding like a war drum. What happened in the next minute? I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't seen it. The jungle, the actual jungle, came alive. Monkeys howled. Birds swooped low. I saw a wild pig dash through and knock the last guy off his feet. Not an accident. This wasn't chaos. This was coordination. Like the forest had made up its mind. Enough. And Yorua? She didn't chase them. She didn't need to. Her message was loud and clear. You don't run this place. We do. By the time I got back to the village, I was soaked in sweat, shaking, and probably looked like I'd been in a bar fight with a tornado. Mateo ran up to me. "Did you see her again?" "Yeah," I said, still catching my breath, "and she saw me too." I didn't explain everything. Some things, they're not meant to be told. They're meant to be remembered. But one thing I did tell him. We're not alone out here, kid, and maybe that's a good thing. Yorua isn't a monster. She's a guardian. Of balance, of law, of everything that lives and dies by the jungle's rules. And if you step out of line, don't expect a second warning.